we are happy in that we got a third opportunity to program slapstick films. And the first one went back to our shared interest in finding slapstick comedians that haven't been looked as much as we would want them to.
Especially the European comedians.
Yeah, so there was a focus on European ones beyond the usual narrative that it started in France and Italy, and then you had Sennett and Chaplin and so forth. Then working with Jay, we really learned his embrace of thematic approaches also, and followed that quite a bit in the second one around. So we had marital comedies with Olga Svensson from Denmark and Charlie Chase in one program and so forth. So we figured the third time around, now we can take a look that comes from what looks like a canonical viewpoint from Chaplin, but says that also from that viewpoint you can offer up new perspective, whether it's influences on, influences by, imitators.
Yeah.
Animation showing that was such a influential, larger-than-life figure that there were other artists following his creation and doing their own thing with it, for instance, but of course also he didn't emerge from a vacuum.
In our last incarnation of Origins of Slapstick, which I think was 2023, we had a Sidney Chaplin program. We showed Oh, What a Nurse, and it was a huge success. And then we started talking about Chaplin, and we spoke to Jay about the possibility of exploring just Chaplin, the phenomenon of Chaplin. And it seemed like a good thing to do, and that's what we decided to do. And but then we didn't want to just show the greatest hits. You know, most of the people here at the Giornate, they've seen The Kid, they've seen City Lights, they've seen The Gold Rush, but we wanted to explore more the Chaplin phenomenon and where he came from and how he influenced everyone else. So that's why we sort of surrounded, it's all this other Chaplin material, to just explore Chaplin mania, how he became so popular.
And sometimes it's a little snippet that, or a little, just a small idea, or a little snippet that we saw, like one little piece of newsreel, which we actually don't have in the program, basically brought us to this idea of highlighting not only Mabel Normand, which is a bit obvious, but also really necessary, but also Marie Dressler. And then sometimes you just feel like, here's a film we're passionate about, we really want to show, we have a crazy interest in, and if Jay lets us go through with it, I mean, we need some feedback, so that we, you know.
Even within something we really want to show, it still has to fit into the context with everything else.
So it has to be checked by someone so that we don't get carried away by a certain film.
Jay has a good eye to sort of keep us, what's the word, keep us in...
grounded in this,
yeah.
So with Marie Dressler, this idea was that Billy West film where you have Babe Hardy, Oliver Hardy in a role not dissimilar to Tilly, and that was close to our heart. And then you ask around, and our archival friends are super helpful and made it happen. They had a print, they scanned it, and there you go.
Yeah, the archives have been wonderful as far as making things available for us. And, you know, we would ask them in some cases, what do you have? And they would send us. Like most of the animation came from the iFilm Museum, but they had sent us links, and we were able to look at some of the animation, and it was, you know, it's like, oh, this is wonderful. So the archives will be a huge help.
And sometimes the sessions develop a dynamic of their own, or little accidents happen, like I mentioned in the Collegium, we got one catalog note, there was a confusion of two films, and then the catalog notes kind of redeemed the film. So we said, no, we have these lovely notes and they make it fit, we keep it in the program. So in the end we ended up with 3 pieces of animation where we had selected 2, and all 3 then basically fit in, hopefully nicely.
And when you do a series like this here with sort of a large overall, there are happy accidents, because there are films that you really want, but you can't get. They're not available. You can't find in 35, or the prints aren't in good enough shape, and you have to substitute or find something else, and sometimes they turn out. That was the case of Oh, What a Nurse.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we wanted Charlie's Aunt, which is a Sid Chaplin feature, but we couldn't get the print, and we ended up with Oh, What a Nurse, and it was a big success. So you have happy accidents often.
Including the audience resonance, because we don't know. I mean, they all say with comedy you can't judge it if you watch it by yourself, etc. But yeah, Oh, What a Nurse was a super hit, and then we were like, well, we need more Sid Chaplin. He's a winner. But for instance, we were surprised. I think it's okay to program something because it's interesting. If it's not 1 hour. So one case in point would be Billy Ritchie, but actually people quite liked it. No, it was a good selection because it was a relatively gentle Ritchie and has whole in it. Right?
Especially when you're doing a series that's based on comedy films. As Zuli was saying, you try to find the films that are funny, but then if something is extremely interesting and it's short, it can fit in as well. It doesn't have to be hilarious. You know, if it helps illuminate the other films or the theme.
And that includes the happy accidents. I mean, no one of us would say, great, this film only survives as a fragment, but curatorially that can be very nice because you wouldn't deliberately say we're only showing one reel of a feature. But if that's all there is, you can make a curatorial point by whatever survives. We had that this time around with Tilly's Tomato Surprise. We had it in one of our early series with Kurt Geron and Sigruman, right? As beef and steak. So there's only one reel around, and that way we're not tied to showing the whole feature.
But it still gives you a sample, and it sometimes illuminates.
Cigarno.
It illuminates the theme then sometimes, where you wouldn't be able to show the whole feature. Oh well, that was what we were shooting for. The target was to do the Chaplin. I would have liked to have done it without showing any actual Chaplin films, but that's just me being perverse. You know, you have to show Chaplin. And of course, Shoulder Arms is so wonderful to show that restoration.
Yeah, and that's Chaplin the man, also the artist, the businessman Sid Chaplin. So it was important to us to show there's not only this common narrative like the troubled man or the man who was unhappy in exile, which he clearly wasn't. So that's something that we wanted to convey with the home movies. Aside from the fact that you get these wonderful snippets of him clowning with his family, it shows his happy work life, his happy family life in Switzerland. And this is also another super gratifying thing, the music. And I think with that session, to keep it all together in one narrative, starting with the music hall influences, going through the studio, the dismantling of the studio, the life in Switzerland. I think Stephen and Frank did a fantastic job of providing different flavors to that and carry us through what was a very long session, but
it helps tie the thematic themes together, and they really did.
As did all the other musicians. So this is also the gratifying thing for us when we come here. The work is more or less done. We hope that people love what we did, but then it blossoms with the music and with unexpected laughter here, and maybe people don't respond so well to some other things.
It's hard to judge comedies when you're going to program a series because, you know, we may think it's very funny, or one of us thinks it's very funny and recommends it, and perhaps the other one hasn't seen it, but we go with each other's recommendations. But it's always, you know, is the audience going to find it funny? It's always that sort of variable. One of the films that I really love in this series was the Mabel Normand film Betty Becomes a Maid. And I think it's a wonderful film. It's one of my favorites. And luckily the audience really responded to it and really liked it. But, you know, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. So it's just, there's a little bit of trial and error when you pick things. So I think he's still modern because in his films, he strove for the utmost simplicity, to tell the story in a very human way, but very simply. And I think that's why it still works, because he's not as connected to a specific era, that the films were actually made. They're more universal, so they still speak. And I think that was just because of the distillation of what he was trying, of the ideas and the themes. And it makes them still current.
I think you can see it beautifully in The Bond, which is really just an advertisement film for those Liberty Loan war bonds, and it has these beautiful little vignettes, and it's just, oh, I meet a friend, and he's kind of talking and talking, I don't get away. That's
and he borrows money off of me, and the thing of marrying Edna, and so it's still relevant. It's still relevant.
And it's like it's one reel, and it's pure Chaplin, even though it was a film that's not screened that frequently because it's not one of the canonical narrative films that he did. But it's lovely.
Yeah.